Alright guys, welcome back to the shop. If you're just tuning in, we're putting a turbo Subaru engine in the 1981 Subaru BRAT. And I'm actually recording about 2 to 3 videos at the same time right now, so if all this in the background doesn't make a lot of sense, it will soon. But I've kind of run into a little bit of a predicament with how the car is sitting on the lift, because I don't have any front suspension on this car right now. And so where I had to place the jack to keep the car on the lift blocks me trying to fit in the transmission into the car. And so I'm a little bit of a predicament, but I think this is good because it's going to force me to finish the front suspension. That way the car can actually sit on its own. Then we can test fit the transmission. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to put all the front suspension on, wheels, tires, everything. That way the car will sit on the lift safely. Then we'll get that jack out of the way, and then we'll be able to test fit the transmission. So I want to let you know what's going on here, because none of this is really original, and if you're new to the channel you might not know what we've been up to. So the suspension, which is the coilovers here, are off of about a 94 to 96 Impreza / Legacy, because they're very similar. The spindle, brakes, rotor here, all this here is off of like a 94 Legacy. And then the lower control arm under here, which you can't really see in the video, but there's one down here, is the Gen 2 BRAT, which is about 82 all the way up to 87, I believe, here in the United States, or 89, one of those. And we had to remount, I think is the term, the lower ball joint to a 10 degree. So that way we could put on the Impreza or Legacy spindle. So I'll put some overlay video over this so you guys can see what we've done up to this point. So all of it works. Only thing I want to do before we move forward is I do want to go ahead and put the steering rack back in. That way we can just have the side to side here with the wheels and keep them straight. There is another arm that goes here and goes all the way back here, and it's called the radial arm, and that prevents this from going side to side. Now, since we're not driving it and it's just sitting on the lift, I'm not going to put that in yet because the lift is in the way, or at least the jack is in the way, and we need to be able to get the transmission cross member in and out, and they're all on the same bracket. And so I'll show you that once we raise the car up. So, but just a little recap: Impreza Legacy 94 to about 96 coilovers, 94, probably the 96 you could use. Impreza / Legacy front spindle, brake setup, all that. But you do need the Gen 2 lower control arm, and you'll have to remount the ball joint hole to a 10 degree, and then you should be good to go. All right, so one thing I forgot to mention, you guys, is the top hat, which we had made by Cut Sin. I drew this up in Fusion, which allows us to use the factory mounting bracket holes that are on the BRAT and the coilover mounting slots, if you will, that are on the coilover. So I'll show an overlay video of that real quick, but that allows us to adapt it to the BRAT without actually having to drill anything. So just wanted to show you that. All right, so we got the wheels on, and we're gonna lower it down here. I'm gonna take the blocks out. The blocks were not supporting anything. It's just kind of there to safety in a way. Makes me feel better at least. This is the jack, the tray jack that I was talking about, and that's exactly where the transmission needs to go, as you can tell. So we've got to lower that down and get it out of the way, which is why we put the wheels and suspension on, so we can actually get the BRAT sitting down on the lift. Now there isn't an e-brake right now, so I'm gonna have to wheel chock it. I've got wheel chocks in the back. I'm probably gonna put these guys up front here too, just to keep it safe, and then we'll kind of figure out from there if I want to add anything else. So let's lower the jack down and get the car up in the air. All right, so we've got the car sitting down on the lift, and I have to say that looks pretty good. A little bit of wheel gap that we can clean up, but you guys get an idea of what this is actually gonna look like. So I'm really happy with this. I really like these wheels. Spent a lot of time trying to find the ones that I really liked. So I think these are gonna go well with the car. The plan is I'm gonna scoot this jack up to the front and then actually use it on the cross member. That way it does provide a little support. As you saw, I kind of shook the car back and forth. And wheel chocks will do okay, but this metal here is real slippery, and I really don't want a car rolling off this, especially when it's up in the air. So let's move this over, and then we can raise the car up. All right, so we got the car up on the lift. I end up moving the jack back here. There's actually a really good jack point here, and that gets this lift, or jack I should say, out of my way. And because we're gonna be really working up here for a while, and I don't want that to get in the way. So move that back here, jacked up, just put a little pressure on the body, so that way it'll kind of keep everything from rolling. There are stops on the end of each ramp, and then we also have these kind of wheel chocks on here, so I'm not too worried about it, but gotta be safe, gotta be careful. So let's go underneath and check it out. Let me get in here, hopefully there's enough light. So here is the transmission cross member for reference. Then you got obviously the front cross member, and then there's the engine. So not a lot of room underneath here, but these are those radial arm mounts I was talking to you about, so we're gonna have to incorporate those somehow into the transmission mount, because that transmission is not going to fit through this little tunnel opening right here unless we cut this out and go up, which we're just going to have to figure that out. I would prefer to keep this factory if I can. If not, we'll have to just tackle that when we get there. I think I want to go ahead and test fit the transmission, so let's do that real quick. If this wasn't there, we'd be able to get this in there, I think. guys, we got the transmission mocked up in here. Transmission tunnel looks great. A couple tabs that we could probably cut off there. And I think we can make a simple bracket that goes from here across over there. So actually it would be a lower profile than the factory bracket, which is cool. Up here is where we might run into a few things. Let me go on this side. You can see up here, let me get up in here for you. You can see up here on top, that's the top of the engine, and then this is the top of the transmission. So we've got a good 3 to 4 inches there that we've got to make up. So there's two ways we could do this. We could somehow lower the engine a little bit, which I think we've got some wiggle room there, or we remake the transmission tunnel to keep it higher. But I don't think we can go much higher because, or go much higher with the transmission, that is. The drive shaft has to be level. So I don't know if we're gonna be able to get from there to here. It looks straight now, but if we went any higher, there's just no way that's gonna work. So the engine is gonna have to come down, which I think we've got enough room. We can make that happen. We might have to make some custom engine mounts. We were using the engine mounts from the 2010 Legacy GT, which was raising it up off the crossmember, but I think we're gonna have to come down and maybe use some WRX or STI engine mounts. We'll just have to see. However, I'm really happy we did this because I can really see the fitment in here and see how everything's gonna line up with this. And the other thing, which I'm sure a lot of people are wondering, what about the CV axles? Well, if we look here, the output shaft from the transmission, there's your spindle. So we've got a pretty straight shot. Might have to remove that. However, I think I'm gonna make this rear wheel drive. They make a conversion kit for this 5-speed that I think would be really cool to have a rear wheel drive Brat. However, I haven't decided yet, so let me know in the comments if you think we should keep it all-wheel drive or if we should make it rear wheel drive. So I'd like to know what you guys think. So I'm gonna rip the exhaust off this because it's been getting in my way, and we're gonna lower it back down and then we'll go from there. All right, so I'm under here just kind of seeing where everything is before we lower this thing back down. Try to do much due diligence before we take all this back out. And there's a few brackets here that we can get rid of. So like this was the e-brake bracket here, which luckily those bolt on. There's some it's also going to help with the shifter location. On WRX's, the shifters actually kind of hangs out back past the transmission, so that's going to help us a lot to get that really nice shifter position on the car. I am a little disappointed because the way the engine is sitting now, it is flush with the front valence, so that when it sits down it's going to be a little lower than the front valence, but kind of have a cool idea for the front of the car that I'm hoping will cover that up and protect the turbo up there. The exhaust is going to look great. It's going to have a really nice exit out the driver's side and then back here. And the crossmember actually has a little notch here, so I think we'll tuck it right up here and go out that way. Overall, I am really happy and I'm really excited to move forward with this. This is really getting me back into it, and a lot of work, but we're just gonna move forward. Moving the engine forward and down is actually going to help with a couple of things. The front crossmember mounting bolt is right here, and as you can tell, the back end of our valve cover is right on it. And so moving that forward is going to help clearance that. We're also going to notch this section, which I've mentioned in previous videos, to give us plenty of valve cover clearance. It's also going to help with the height of the engine. the engine is pretty high in the engine bay. So let me show you here. As you can see, the intake here is above this fender. So I think doing that is really gonna get that down, and it's gonna get it underneath the hood more. The other thing we're gonna have to figure out is radiator placement. Right now we've got actually quite a bit of room between the front of the engine and the front of the car. Now moving forward about an inch probably is gonna be okay, because the radiator actually is gonna suck back here a little bit more. And so that's gonna help us out quite a bit. I'm also not gonna do a front mount intercooler or a top mount. I'm probably gonna do more of a water to air cooler, because we've got a lot of room back here where the spare tire was. So I think we'll have a really nice air to water setup back there, and that way we don't have to modify the hood at all. All right guys, thanks for hanging out in the shop with me today. I really appreciate it. We've gotten a lot done in this video. I'm really happy that we were able to test fit the transmission, and that gives me a good game plan moving forward. If you're wondering why the transmission looks so light, I've got a video coming out about that. If you're wondering why there's some holes in the floors, I've got a whole video coming out about that as well. We've done a lot of restoration on this. We've had to cut out a lot of things, and so I've got a good game plan for the floor pans as we move forward. That video is just taking a little bit longer to make, just because I've never done it before. So once again, I appreciate you hanging out with me. Hope you take care, and I'll see you in the next video.